What happens when a wife uncovers the ultimate betrayal? A secret affair between her husband and her own mother. This harrowing true crime story from Denver, Colorado, unravels a tale of trust shattered and a deadly confrontation that ended in murder. Samantha Rivers, 34. Samantha Rivers was known as a devoted wife and a loving daughter. At 34, she worked as a dedicated schoolteacher, balancing her career with a deeply fulfilling family life. Samantha was admired for her kindness and commitment, both in her professional and personal spheres. She placed immense trust in her husband, Daniel, and her mother, Carol, viewing them as her closest allies. To those around her, Samantha appeared to have a perfect life, making the betrayal she experienced all the more shocking and heart-wrenching. Daniel Rivers, 36. Daniel Rivers, at 36, was a charismatic and successful businessman known for his charm and confidence. He appeared to have it all: an established career, a loving wife, and a respected position in the community. To his wife, Samantha, Daniel was a devoted partner and a dependable husband, and she trusted him completely. However, beneath his polished exterior, Daniel was leading a double life. His affair with Samantha's mother, Carol, revealed a dark side of deceit and betrayal. While he maintained an image of success and affability, his actions were marked by duplicity and a betrayal of the very people who trusted him the most. Carol Rivers, 58. Carol Rivers, at 58, was seen as a nurturing and supportive mother to her daughter, Samantha. With a background in community volunteering, Carol was well regarded for her caring nature and involvement in local activities. She was perceived as a reliable and loving figure who always seemed to put her family first. Carol's relationship with Samantha was one of mutual respect and affection, making the revelation of her affair with Samantha's husband, Daniel, all the more devastating. Her actions, driven by personal desires and a lack of moral judgment, contributed significantly to the tragedy, shattering the trust and bond within the family and leading to a devastating confrontation. On the surface, the Rivers family appeared to be the epitome of a happy and harmonious household. Samantha Rivers, a devoted schoolteacher, and her husband, Daniel, a charismatic businessman, were often seen as the ideal couple. They hosted lively gatherings, shared affectionate moments, and were active participants in their community. Samantha's mother, Carol, was a frequent and cherished guest at their home, adding to the warmth and closeness of their family dynamic. The family's interactions were characterized by laughter, support, and genuine care. Samantha and Daniel seemed deeply in love, their public displays of affection and shared goals painting a picture of marital bliss. Carol, with her nurturing demeanor, played the role of a supportive mother and grandmother, often praised for her role in their lives. Yet, beneath this seemingly perfect exterior lay a dark and destructive secret. The trust and affection that bound them together masked a hidden affair between Daniel and Carol, unraveling the family's well-crafted facade and exposing the deep betrayal that would lead to a tragic and devastating conclusion. The harmony they displayed was a fragile veneer concealing the turmoil and deception lurking just out of sight. The Rivers family lived in the picturesque suburb of Asheville, North Carolina. Their home, a charming two-story house with a well-manicured garden, was often the backdrop for gatherings and family celebrations. The neighborhood was known for its friendly and close-knit community, where well-maintained homes and lush green parks created an idyllic setting. From the outside, the Rivers' life appeared typical and supportive. The family's home was a place of warmth and hospitality, frequently hosting dinner parties and social events that showcased their seemingly perfect family life. The environment was serene, reflecting the outward harmony that the Rivers family projected. However, beneath this calm and inviting facade, the affair between Daniel and Carol unfolded in the shadows, leading to a betrayal that would shatter the tranquility of their surroundings and culminate in a tragic confrontation. The initial signs of trouble began subtly but grew increasingly pronounced over time. Samantha Rivers started noticing small, unsettling changes in her daily life. Daniel, once attentive and present, began displaying erratic behavior, unexplained absences, late nights at work, and a general sense of emotional distance. Samantha also observed that Carol, who had always been an integral part of their family life, seemed unusually secretive and withdrawn. The emotional strain on Samantha became evident as she tried to reconcile her growing suspicions with her love and trust in both Daniel and Carol. She began to feel an undercurrent of anxiety and confusion, questioning the sudden shifts in her husband's and mother's behavior. Her trust, once unwavering, began to crack under the weight of these inconsistencies. The breakthrough came when Samantha discovered a series of incriminating messages and photos that revealed the extent of the affair. The betrayal was not just a violation of her marriage, but a profound personal betrayal from her own mother. The emotional impact was devastating. Samantha was overwhelmed by feelings of shock, anger, and deep sadness. The discovery shattered her sense of security and trust, leaving her grappling with the horrifying realization that the people she loved and trusted the most had deceived her in the most unimaginable way. This revelation was not just a personal crisis but a deep, unsettling emotional wound that would alter her life forever. After Samantha Rivers uncovered the affair between her husband, Daniel, and her mother, Carol, her perception of her marriage and family shifted dramatically. The once warm and comforting home now felt like a battleground of betrayal and deceit. Samantha's trust in Daniel was irrevocably shattered. What had once seemed like a loving and supportive marriage now appeared to be a facade built on lies and deception. Every interaction with Daniel became fraught with tension. His attempts to explain away his absences and emotional distance were met with Samantha's growing mistrust and pain. The affectionate gestures that had once been symbols of their bond now felt hollow and insincere. Samantha's anger and heartbreak were palpable, casting a shadow over their interactions and deepening the emotional rift between them. Her relationship with Carol, once a source of comfort and guidance, was now tainted by the revelation of the affair. The betrayal from her mother felt like an additional layer of hurt, compounding her emotional turmoil. Family gatherings, once joyful occasions, became painful reminders of the shattered trust and fractured relationships. Samantha struggled with feelings of isolation and confusion, questioning the very foundations of her family and the authenticity of the love she once believed in. The emotional turmoil and shifting dynamics left her grappling with a profound sense of loss and disillusionment, making it nearly impossible to find solace or resolution amidst the chaos of the betrayal. Samantha Rivers' distress began to grow as she noticed more inconsistencies in the behavior of both her husband, Daniel, and her mother, Carol. The signs were subtle at first: Daniel's unexplained late nights, his sudden preoccupation with work, and a general coldness in their interactions. Samantha also found herself increasingly uncomfortable with Carol's odd behavior. Her mother was more evasive than usual and seemed to avoid spending time with Samantha. Driven by a gnawing sense of unease, Samantha started to investigate. She began by scrutinizing Daniel's phone and emails, finding a series of suspicious messages and phone calls that didn't add up. Her search led her to discover photographs and texts that suggested an affair, but it was the more personal and incriminating evidence, intimate messages between Daniel and Carol, that left her stunned. The mounting tension between Samantha and Daniel became increasingly apparent. Conversations turned into arguments, with Samantha demanding explanations and Daniel offering evasive answers. Each confrontation revealed a deeper rift and a growing emotional divide. The trust that had once defined their relationship was replaced by suspicion and resentment. Similarly, Samantha's interactions with Carol became strained and fraught with tension. The loving, supportive mother she once knew was now perceived as a source of betrayal and deceit. Samantha's attempts to confront Carol were met with denial and defensiveness, further escalating the emotional conflict. The realization that her mother had been involved in such a profound betrayal only deepened Samantha's sense of isolation and heartache. The mounting evidence and the strained relationships created an atmosphere of mounting tension and distress, as Samantha struggled to reconcile the shocking truths she had uncovered with the reality of her fractured family. In March 2023, the discovery of Carol Rivers' lifeless body shocked the community and marked a grim turning point in the unfolding tragedy. Carol, who had been central to the emotional turmoil within the Rivers family, was found dead in her own home. The details of the murder were as disturbing as they were unexpected. Carol's body was discovered by a neighbor who had become concerned after not seeing her for several days. Upon entering the house, the neighbor was met with a harrowing scene. Carol's lifeless body was found in the living room, surrounded by the chaos of an apparent struggle. Initial observations suggested a violent confrontation, with signs of a struggle evident in the disarray of the room. Carol had been fatally injured, and the nature of her wounds indicated a brutal and personal attack. The shocking discovery sent ripples through the community, leaving many grappling with the reality of the violence that had erupted from the previously hidden conflicts within the Rivers family. The crime scene was chilling and haunting. Carol Rivers' home, usually a place of warmth and familial gatherings, was now marred by violence and chaos. The living room, where Carol's body was found, was in disarray. Furniture was overturned, and personal items were scattered across the floor, suggesting a violent struggle. Carol lay motionless in the center of the room, her body showing clear signs of a brutal assault. When the neighbor first discovered Carol's body, they were struck by the immediate sense of unease. The once inviting home was now a crime scene, with the air thick with the shock of the discovery. The neighbor, in a state of disbelief and horror, quickly called the police. Upon arrival, the investigators were met with a grim and unsettling scene. The sight of Carol's lifeless body, combined with the signs of a violent confrontation, left the officers and forensic team grappling with the gravity of the situation. The room was carefully examined for clues, with every detail scrutinized to piece together the sequence of events that led to this tragic outcome. The initial shock of the investigators was palpable, as they faced the daunting task of uncovering the truth behind the brutal murder that had shattered the Rivers family and sent ripples of disbelief through the community. The investigation into Carol Rivers' murder was led by a team of seasoned detectives from the Asheville Police Department. The lead detectives on the case were Detective Laura Bennett. With over 15 years of experience in homicide investigations, Detective Bennett brought a meticulous and determined approach to the case. Known for her keen analytical skills and unwavering dedication, she was instrumental in piecing together the complex details surrounding Carol's murder. Detective James Carter, Detective Carter, a veteran with a background in forensic analysis, provided crucial insights into the physical evidence found at the crime scene. His expertise in reconstructing crime scenes and understanding forensic evidence was vital in uncovering the truth behind the murder. Together, Detectives Bennett and Carter led a comprehensive investigation, employing their skills to navigate the layers of deception and uncover the truth behind the tragic events that unfolded in the Rivers family. Their combined efforts played a crucial role in bringing the case to light and seeking justice for Carol Rivers. The forensic team's analysis revealed crucial details linking Samantha Rivers to the murder of her mother, Carol. At the crime scene, they found a trail of blood that included traces of Samantha's DNA mixed with Carol's. This blood evidence was discovered on items like a broken vase and a rug, showing that Samantha had been present and involved in the violent struggle. Fingerprints on a heavy object used as a weapon were found to match Samantha's, further connecting her to the crime. This weapon had been hidden behind furniture, but the prints clearly indicated Samantha's involvement. Digital evidence also played a significant role. Samantha's phone and computer contained messages and searches that revealed her emotional turmoil and growing anger leading up to the murder. These messages, along with surveillance footage showing Samantha entering and leaving her mother's home around the time of the murder, provided a timeline of her activities and supported the forensic findings. Together, this evidence painted a clear picture of Samantha's involvement in the tragic events. The investigation into Carol Rivers' murder involved intense interviews with key figures connected to the case. The process began with Samantha Rivers, who was questioned about her relationship with her mother and husband. Initially, Samantha was distraught and defensive, but as the questioning continued, inconsistencies in her statements became apparent. Her emotional responses, combined with her knowledge of the crime scene, led investigators to scrutinize her more closely. Daniel Rivers was also interviewed extensively. He claimed to be shocked and devastated by Carol's death, but his statements were carefully examined for any contradictions. His alibi, which was supposed to cover his whereabouts during the time of the murder, began to unravel under scrutiny. Detectives discovered that Daniel had been involved in the affair with Carol, and his interactions with both Samantha and Carol revealed a complex web of deceit. Carol's close friends and neighbors were interviewed to piece together her recent interactions and behavior. Their accounts painted a picture of Carol's strained relationships and hinted at the tension within the Rivers family. Witnesses described seeing Samantha and Carol arguing shortly before the murder, which added to the mounting evidence against Samantha. As investigators pieced together the testimonies, the truth about the affair and the motive behind the murder became clearer. Samantha's growing frustration with the affair, combined with the evidence found at the crime scene and the digital evidence, revealed that she had been driven by betrayal and a desperate need to confront the chaos in her life. The interviews provided critical insights into the relationships and emotions that led to the tragic outcome. Testimonies. The trial of Samantha Rivers was a deeply emotional and dramatic affair, with powerful testimonies from various witnesses adding to the intensity of the courtroom proceedings. Family members. Samantha's testimony was one of the most heart-wrenching moments of the trial. She spoke of her deep sense of betrayal and her strained relationship with both her mother, Carol, and her husband, Daniel. Her tearful recounting of discovering the affair and her struggles with the fallout painted a vivid picture of her emotional turmoil. Carol's close friends and relatives also took the stand, describing the impact of her loss on their lives and the painful reality of the family's fractured relationships. Forensic experts. Forensic experts provided detailed explanations of the evidence that linked Samantha to the crime. They described the blood analysis that matched Samantha's DNA, the fingerprints on the murder weapon, and the digital evidence from her phone and computer. Their testimony underscored the technical aspects of the case, making the connections between Samantha and the murder clear to the jury. Law enforcement officers. Detectives Laura Bennett and James Carter gave gripping accounts of their investigation. Detective Bennett detailed the process of uncovering the affair and the emotional strain it placed on Samantha. Detective Carter explained how the forensic evidence was analyzed and how it led to Samantha's involvement in the crime. Their testimony highlighted the painstaking work that went into solving the case and the shocking nature of the murder. Throughout the trial, the emotional weight of the case was palpable. The courtroom was filled with a mix of sadness, anger, and disbelief as the affair and its devastating consequences were laid bare. The testimonies provided a comprehensive view of the tragedy, revealing the depth of betrayal and the profound impact on everyone involved. Defense and prosecution. The trial of Samantha Rivers showcased a dramatic clash between the defense and prosecution, each presenting a starkly different portrayal of the case. Defense's argument. The defense painted Samantha as a victim of an unimaginable betrayal, emphasizing the overwhelming emotional pain she endured. They argued that Samantha was driven to a breaking point by the dual betrayal of her mother and husband. Her defense team portrayed her actions as a tragic response to a situation that had spiraled out of control, suggesting that she had lost her sense of judgment under the weight of such profound deceit. Key moments included the defense's attempts to highlight her mental state, presenting expert testimony that suggested she was suffering from severe emotional distress, which clouded her judgment and led to the crime. Prosecution's argument. In contrast, the prosecution depicted the crime as a premeditated act driven by rage and a desire for control. They argued that Samantha's actions were not a spontaneous reaction but the result of calculated decisions made in a state of emotional turmoil. The prosecution highlighted the forensic evidence, such as the fingerprints on the weapon and the incriminating digital evidence, to underscore the planning and deliberate nature of the crime. Key moments included detailed presentations of the timeline of events, revealing how Samantha's growing anger and the affair's exposure led her to make the fatal decision. Throughout the trial, both sides used powerful evidence and emotional appeals to sway the jury. The defense's portrayal of Samantha as a deeply hurt individual struggling with betrayal contrasted sharply with the prosecution's depiction of her as someone who acted with calculated intent. The dramatic testimony from family members, combined with forensic evidence and expert opinions, underscored the complexity of the case and the deep emotional and psychological factors that played into the tragic outcome. The verdict. After a tense and emotional trial, the jury delivered their verdict. Samantha Rivers was found guilty of the murder of her mother, Carol Rivers. The decision came after days of intense deliberations and heart-wrenching testimonies that laid bare the complexities of the case. In the courtroom, the verdict was met with a mix of shock and sadness. Many in the gallery, including family members and friends of both the Rivers family and Carol, were visibly moved. Samantha's reaction was subdued and distant. Her eyes, once filled with tears, were now empty as she absorbed the weight of the jury's decision. The realization of her guilt and the ensuing consequences seemed to sink in, leaving a heavy atmosphere in the courtroom. The verdict was a somber conclusion to a case that had exposed the darkest corners of human emotion and betrayal. The emotional impact of the verdict was profound, marking the end of a trial that had deeply affected everyone involved, from the families to the community. The courtroom was filled with a sense of finality and reflection as the reality of the verdict settled over the proceedings. Sentencing. In 2024, Samantha Rivers was sentenced to life in prison for the murder of her mother, Carol Rivers. The sentence was delivered in a courtroom filled with a mixture of sadness and finality. The gravity of the crime and the emotional turmoil it caused were evident in the judge's remarks and the reactions of those present. Aftermath for the family. The sentencing marked the beginning of a long and painful chapter for the remaining family members. Daniel Rivers, Carol's husband, was left to face the harsh reality of losing his wife and dealing with the betrayal of his daughter. His grief was compounded by the fractured relationships within his family, leaving him isolated and heartbroken. The impact of the crime tore apart the family's emotional fabric, leaving lasting scars that would take years to heal. Community's reaction. The residents of Springfield, Illinois, were deeply affected by the tragic events that had unfolded. What was once seen as a typical, supportive family was exposed to be entangled in a web of deceit and murder. The case stirred up a mix of shock and horror within the community as people struggled to come to terms with the brutal reality of the crime. The story of betrayal and the ensuing murder left a dark mark on the town, serving as a somber reminder of the depths of human emotions and the devastating consequences they can bring. Lasting effects of the murder. Family. The murder of Carol Rivers had a profound and enduring impact on both the Rivers and the extended families involved. For Samantha Rivers' family, the tragedy shattered their sense of normalcy and trust. Daniel Rivers, already devastated by the loss of his wife, faced the crushing realization of his daughter's betrayal. The emotional wounds ran deep, leaving Daniel to navigate a life marked by intense grief and the burden of rebuilding what remained of his family. The psychological toll on Daniel was immense, as he grappled with both the loss of Carol and the devastating betrayal of Samantha. Carol's extended family also struggled to come to terms with the tragedy. The emotional scars left by Carol's murder affected her relatives deeply, as they were forced to confront the betrayal and loss within their own family. The shock of Carol's death and the brutal circumstances surrounding it created a ripple effect of sorrow and disbelief. Relationships within the family were strained, and the sense of betrayal and loss lingered long after the trial. The murder not only tore apart the Rivers family, but also left a lasting mark on both families' collective memories. The impact of the crime continued to affect their emotional well-being, and the sense of betrayal from within their own ranks made healing a difficult and ongoing process. The families were left grappling with the complex emotions of grief, betrayal, and the long path toward finding a semblance of normalcy in the aftermath of such a devastating crime. The murder of Carol Rivers had a profound and unsettling impact on the city of Springfield, Illinois. What began as a shocking revelation quickly turned into one of the most somber chapters in the community's history. The case drew widespread media attention and became a focal point of discussion and disbelief among residents. Springfield, known for its close-knit community and generally tranquil environment, was shaken to its core by the brutal crime. The fact that such a tragedy occurred within what many perceived as a normal, supportive family left residents reeling. The murder exposed the dark undercurrents hidden beneath the surface of everyday life, challenging the community's sense of security and trust. The city's reaction was one of collective grief and shock. Community gatherings, memorials for Carol, and public discussions reflected the profound impact of the crime on Springfield's social fabric. The case became a cautionary tale, highlighting the extreme consequences of personal betrayals and the hidden struggles that can lurk behind closed doors. As a result, the story of the Rivers family became a poignant reminder of the fragility of trust and the devastating effects of betrayal, leaving an indelible mark on the community's collective memory. This tragic case exposes the devastating consequences of betrayal and the extreme lengths to which emotional pain can drive someone. It serves as a sobering reminder of the fragile nature of trust and the profound impact of hidden secrets. In the end, the story of the Rivers family underscores how deeply personal betrayals can unravel lives and leave lasting scars. If you found this story compelling, please like, subscribe, and comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the case and whether you believe justice was truly served. Your insights help us continue to bring these important stories to light.